everyone, I'm Kelsey.
And I'm JPatt.
And you're listening to the Box Officers Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to leave us a star rating or a review wherever you're listening to this episode.
Watching a bad movie is like witnessing a serious crime, but have no fear. The box officers are here. Every episode, Kelsey, George, and I will review a new movie, and at the end of each episode, we'll classify the film according to the severity of punishment.
Yes, so films can be convicted of a felony, a misdemeanor, an infraction, or on the rare occasion found innocent. I know everyone is missing Georgette so much. She will be back, so just hang with us. But this week, JPatt and I will be reviewing the movie The Long Walk. So if you have not seen it yet, you're going to want to pause the episode now because there's going to be a lot of spoilers. If you have seen it, sit tight. Let's get into the episode.
Check it out. David Johnson. What's the first movie you saw him in? Because he played Peter in this movie. You know the black guy. But he looks familiar now that I'm seeing
I thought so too.
his younger face. Because he looks younger in that photo. I'm like, what movie have I seen him in?
He was in Alien Romulus. Maybe that's where I would know him from.
There we go. Okay.
I think that's where I recognize him from. But he's done some other things as well. Something called Rye Lane I haven't seen. The Road Trip. I think that's a show.
Yeah, he was in Romulus. Yeah.
I was going to
liked
say, I
him.
think that's where we're catching him from.
Yeah. He was the android in Romulus. He did a great job in that. So I guess it's his next like major film. He deserves
And I love
it.
that for him. I love that for him. And I love that we got so many new young actors in this movie. Cooper Hoffman was the other like leading man, I would say, in this. He's done a few other projects as well. But I think for both of them, this is definitely what you may consider a breakout role. And that's super exciting.
Sure. He's 22.
You know, are you a Star Wars guy? Yeah, you are. You like Star Wars. Our
I don't
good
know Mark.
brother Mark. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think Garrett Waring has a familiar face. Judy Greer is in this.
Yeah.
Mark and Judy, I was like, oh, I know you guys. But all of the guys that are actually participating in this walk are really young and new actors. And I thought that was really cool of them to cast a lot of people that, you know, I love a talented person. But sometimes I want a new face on my screen because I can associate you low-key with, like, your prior roles. This is, like, fresh for me. I was really buying into what they were selling, so that was really nice. Did you read the book by Stephen King, The Long Walk?
I never read the book. Like I didn't know it was a book until I just kind of like did my little research before I saw the movie. Did you read it at some point?
No, I did not read it.
Because I've never been like a Stephen King fan. You know, he has a catalog. I don't really resonate with all the movies he made.
This kind of makes sense if you think about like how he writes or like some of his other things that have turned into movies, adaptations. I can see how this is like, I do believe he wrote it, but I was looking it up, you know, trying to see like how the book differed from the movie. And apparently it really boils down mainly to the ending.
Yeah.
But essentially the main character, so let me see if I can get this straight. Okay, so the way it works in the movie is at the end of the movie, you have Peter and you have Ray, and then Peter tries to give up, tries to sacrifice himself, and then Ray is like, no. Yeah. And Peter thinks he's right there with him, but he also sacrifices himself, and now Peter wins. Peter picks up the gun, shoots the general, and then continues his walk, which probably is like a mental thing at that point. Like you've walked for 4 days straight, like you're delirious, right?
And only that part happened in the movie, right?
Yes. So in the book, actually, the final three are the same. It's Peter, Ray, and Stebbins. But Peter actually is the one to die in third place in the book. Okay. So Peter dies, and it's like kind of like an honorable, like head held high, kind of like Arthur, the character Arthur, who was played by Tut Nyot. Him in the book, the death that Peter has kind of looks like the death that Arthur had in the movie.
Arthur. Yeah.
But then it's just Ray and Stebbins.
Hmm.
And Ray actually tries to give up in the book too, but then Stebbins just like dies like pretty quickly after that. And then Ray wins and he just continues walking. Like it's like the wind doesn't even like clock to him either. So it's kind of similar to how in the movie Peter just keeps on walking, Ray just kind
Yeah.
of keeps on walking.
Yeah.
But there's no like shooting the general, none of that. So I thought that was interesting. People had differing opinions on like how they felt about it. A lot of people
Yeah.
said that the book version would have been like pretty anticlimactic for a movie adaptation so they can understand why it was changed. But a lot of other
Hmm.
people said they feel like the book was perfect and they feel like it didn't need to be changed. So I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting though. That's
Yeah,
like
it is.
drastically different.
Yeah, it is pretty different. But I wonder like what was the context behind the ending in the book? 'Cause like, okay, so Peter, he's basically in third place. He dies, honorably. He's like just like, this is where it ends for me or whatever. So it's just the Raymond guy and Stebbins, and you're saying that Raymond stops first, but Stebbins stops, I guess, immediately after, but he's killed off somehow. Does it explain how he was like killed after Raymond stopped? Or
Could be wrong. So forgive me,
yeah.
book readers, but from like what I was reading, I interpreted it as it's similar to kind of how he died in the movie, like he was sick. So he was gonna die anyway. And he
Okay.
just kind of dropped, like his body gave up. Because
Oh,
he
so
actually,
he
I
just
guess, in the book, he tries to convince them to give up anyway. So it's not like he's not wanting to finish. He does try to convince them to give up anyways,
yeah. Yeah.
but his body like gives out,
That just
and
gives
so he
out on
dies.
him. Okay.
And
And
it's just
then
very convenient timing because Ray also was about to like give out.
give out. And then he just keeps walking and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, like it's giving like I
Well,
guess in the book they painted it as like he saw like shadows,
yeah,
which
yeah,
like could have been like actual shadows or like hallucinations. And
yeah.
he thought there were still people walking, and so he was like, if I
Walking with
stop,
him. Yeah.
I'm going to be killed. When in
Yeah.
reality, everyone else is actually already dead. So they were trying to celebrate, and he's like pushing people off. He's like, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. And that's super dark. Like, it seems way darker than.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie was dark, but that seems like really like yikes.
Yeah.
Especially because part of why it was comforting in the not comforting, but like the soft part that we could find was that it was him and
Hmm.
his friend who's now become like a brother in a way over the past 4 days. But in the book, him and Stebbins are still not like close. So he's basically finishing it with a stranger in the book, which is
Oh, okay.
sad.
Yeah. That's a little and yeah, it is a little anticlimactic. And I guess the dark figures he was saying could have been, I guess, like ghosts, in a way, of the guys that were
Yeah.
walking with him.
Yeah. And I guess there was a part in the book too where Stebbins tells Ray, he's like,
Yeah.
after Peter dies, he's like, if souls are real, if you believe in that, if you quit now, you can probably catch up to him. And I'm like, that's heartbreaking. Like, that's
Damn.
so sad. Like, that's crazy.
That is a crazy quote. That's a crazy quote. Yeah.
Very.
But honestly, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I just had like a better like ending in my head. I wasn't too happy with the ending for the movie, honestly. Like it
Same, I think.
it was a little abrupt and a little like I don't know. They could have done a whole lot more with it because okay, you know, what's his name? Peter. Yeah, Peter. He's the last one left. Peter's the last one left. You have Raymond, he had just died because he was shot or whatever, because he stopped before Peter. He gets shot down, and then the general or major or whatever kills him. So he's offering Peter whatever he wants. And going back to the beginning of the film, or like the middle of it, where they were talking about like vengeance and how Raymond wanted to get revenge on what the general did to his father. And then Peter kind of talks him out of it, and he's like, that's not the way. I feel like those moments paralleling, and he's kind of like, okay, now this is the moment for me to ask for that combine and then shoot the general. Cool. I feel like they could have. This is okay. I'm gonna explain what I feel like they could have done. He could have had a fake scenario where he asks for that combine and then shoots the general, but then it flashes back to as if it never happened, if you get what I'm saying.
I
Like
do. Yes.
when he actually asked for the rifle and shot the general, I thought that was going to be a fake out. I thought it was like, oh, that's what he was thinking about doing. And then it flashes back to him still on the ground, rain on him, still thinking about what he wants to ask for. You get what I'm saying? So
I do. Yeah.
it's kind of like in that moment, they could have showed Peter having that thought of getting revenge for Raymond, but then he chooses not to. And he decides to ask for something else that'll either help his mom, help the people that he walked with, out of memorial of them. Like if I was a director and I was thinking about that moment, it would have that fake out, and then it would have scenes of all the guys that he walked with, kind of like playing in a memorial, like a scene of the Asian dude, a scene of the Native American guy, a scene of Raymond, just and instead of asking for a rifle and then he just shoots the general and walks off. Like realistically, if you're going to shoot a guy like that, you're not going to be walking off. Like even
I was gonna
yeah,
say that too. Even I went with my mom and my sister, and my
yeah,
mom, she was also like, okay, like, because
yeah, like okay, that's it.
realistically, there's so much like military presence
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
like you're not getting away
Like
with it, and it's just not, you're not walking
even
away
in
from
a
that.
yeah, even in a more tragic ending, he could have got his revenge, but then been struck down right at that moment. Like there's no winners here. You know what I'm saying? He could have been the last one. He asks for the rifle, shoots the major down, and then he gets shot down. And it's just kind of like a heroic sacrifice in a way. He
Sure.
stopped the whole long walk thing at the, price of his life and to avenge his friend. That's one ending. And then another ending is he thinks about revenge, but then remembers all the guys he walked with and then asks for something that'll either go towards their families or the guys he walked with.
Like
Or,
Clementine, the wife.
yeah, yeah, like Clementine. Like, okay, you're forgetting about Clementine. Like you're forgetting about, the other black kid, the guy who was like, give this to my grandma. You know what I'm
Arthur,
saying?
yeah.
Arthur, yeah, it could have been some sort of, fake out where it's like, okay, he was thinking about revenge, but now he's gonna ask for something that will actually be tangible and help the families, or maybe promote some type of aid or resistance towards this whole long walk contest they have every year. I don't
Sure.
know. That's yeah, but I'm like, I just didn't like him asking for a rifle, shooting the guy, and then walking off. And I'm like, that was boring. Like,
Yeah. A lot of people actually think that that was possibly the reality of what happened would be that he shot the major, and then
yeah,
everything after that was like delusion almost because he got shot too. And that seems more realistic. Like you shoot him, okay, they're standing right, they have guns everywhere. They shoot you immediately after, and this is what his mind is playing for him to kind of help him get through like the fact that he just got shot, he's about to die. Because I guess, and I don't remember this because I was so caught up in like, oh my goodness, he actually shot him, that I guess the background, the people kind of disappear and it goes a little quiet, which could be just so that we can focus on like the weight of him shooting the major, or it could be because, you're dying. And so you're
okay,
imagining things and your brain is like putting you in this safe space so you die,
yeah,
a little bit more comforted than the
yeah,
reality of like the chaos of the people. Because he shot the major, and you're telling me nobody ran up to him?
right,
There's no celebrating from the people who are maybe in protest of the long walk. There's
right,
no
right.
no reaction from any of the other soldiers or whoever is there. That's just not realistic. And then to just let him walk away. I mean, I always assumed the implication was that if he shoots the major, you're going at the very least to jail. Like you don't get the money anymore either. So that's a theory that I saw online, which I don't know. Or maybe we're supposed to just take it literally and he actually just walked away.
Yeah, but I actually just read something. It says, I was asking what, the long walk ending explained. They said that the movie's ending is a stark contrast to the book ending where Garrity wins, but succumbs to a final ambiguous hallucination and able to process his victory, hitting at a hollow and devastating outcome. So it's possible that in that last moment in the movie, that could have been an hallucination, or at
Yeah,
least everything after
at
that.
least him walking away For
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
that could have been his hallucination, but maybe you can't really tell unless you're like paying attention to the surroundings and everything. Because realistically, yeah, he's gonna be like shot down in that moment, but it doesn't happen within that whatever type of hallucination he was in. So if you're saying that those people out there kind of like faded off or like faded away and disappeared after that was done, then that could have been the hallucination that was
Yeah.
taken out of the book in a way. Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
possible. Yeah. It seems
Yeah.
like the book and the movie have a lot of similarities, but they switched up some of the personalities. Like, and they also, even as far as like Ray's dad, like in the book, he's actually alive
Hmm.
and just like really mean, you know? Or like in the book,
Huh.
Ray actually
Wow.
does have a girlfriend, and
Yeah.
his girlfriend is there when he sees his mom during the walk. His girlfriend is there too, and like there's some differences. Definitely probably worth a read for sure. It sounds super interesting. It kind of reminds me of, how would you place this amongst other dystopian movies? Like for me, watching, I felt like it reminded me of the Hunger Games almost. Like
Yeah,
that
I did.
came to mind. But there's some others, maybe like Divergent, a few others. Do you feel like
I
it
feel like it's
also was high ranking amongst that type of movie?
I feel like the closest dystopian movie it could be towards is probably Hunger Games. Just because it is kind of set in a America setting and there was some type of war that led them to this. I'm not sure what. Maybe it's a war that in reality, if we had lost, maybe this would have happened. I doubt it. But I mean, it seems like it's a pretty crazy contest to have. I feel like they didn't really elaborate on that in the film, where they're like, what is this long walk? What is this war that led to this being a thing that they do it what every year or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, every year. I think that's how they did the Hunger Games, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I feel like, why do I feel like the Hunger Games was every like 4 years? But maybe it was every year.
I do remember them
I
saying
haven't
like
read
something
that
like
in a long
annual,
time.
70 something annual
I
Hunger
think you're
Games. I
right.
feel like it, yeah. But I feel like it holds up well. I like the fact that it's grounded. There's no type of like super weird sci-fi stuff going on. It's kind of like set in this 1960. It's like a 1960s defeated country in a way. It's
Mm-hmm.
besides the long walk itself, everything seems pretty much the same, pretty normal, kind of like a alternate timeline of America. But I do like the idea of it, I like it, instead of it's like, okay, everybody kill each other or some weird stuff like that. It's like, okay, no, everybody has to walk, and whoever's left standing, ends. And it's seen as something honorable. It's not like a punishment, like in the Hunger Games, it was
Yeah.
almost like that was a punishment. But in this, it's kind of like an honorable choice or whatever to be drafted into, um, which is that's pretty cool to me. What you feel like?
No, I agree. It definitely seemed like a choice. I guess when Stephen King wrote the book, it was published at least in 1979. But it sounds like he
Mm,
wrote it at sometime during the 60s, partly in reaction maybe to the Vietnam War. So when you have that context of like when he was writing it, it makes sense, like this post war military draft vibe. I think it adds a lot of context. But yeah, I think it was interesting. A lot of the themes were super straightforward, and that's okay. But talking about how, like, is it really a choice if you know that your life can't be better without this and everybody else is doing it, and it's your only way out of your situation? It's like, yes, you're choosing it, but are you choosing it? I thought that was an interesting conversation. I thought that additionally, like, when you think about all of the themes and the way they were talking, it would have been very easy to accidentally make this boring. They are
hmm
literally walking the entire movie for all 108
mm.
minutes or whatever,
I was thinking about
and
that
they're
when it
having
started
these.
too.
Yeah, I was thinking, like this is gonna be a slow movie, but it wasn't at all. And I thought they handled those conversations. Not everything needs to be so like deep and like you have to deconstruct all of this stuff. No, everything was very straightforward. They had different tropes for the guys that were kind of common, and I feel like, yeah, you had good guys, you had bad guys, you had someone that had to kind of work their way from the bottom to get here, but they're still full of hope. You have someone who's, seemingly set up to succeed and yet still can't. It's really obvious like how to interpret it, but
And the crazy guy.
I still thought it was done. Yeah, you have a crazy person that deep down just really wants friends, but that was okay. And it was done so well that it still hit. I don't know if I would place it as movie of the year. I feel like I saw somebody else tweet about this too, but like definitely the most emotional movie of the year so far. Easy. Now, my mom, I didn't really tell her, I guess, like what was going on. I just told her, I said, hey girl, you want to go see this movie?
Yeah,
And
I bet
I
that
told her
caught
to
her
watch
off
the
guard.
trailer. I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess the trailer, for some reason, it didn't occur to her that these people were dying as a form of
Hmm.
elimination. I think she thought that they were just like disqualified. So that first, poor Curly, my mom's mind was blown. She was like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? But the whole movie really keeps the tension throughout.
Yeah.
And with the movie where the setting is so like consistent, it's just an open road for almost 2 hours, you do have to have that tension to keep the audience engaged, and they did that so well. I feel like starting with Curly, I don't know why. I thought that was going to be, I mean, he seemed like the youngest one there, I think, but I thought he wasn't going to
Yeah.
die till later on and it was really going to hit
Yeah.
different. But
Because he was the
even having it,
youngest. Maybe they would
yeah,
have like little broed him for most of the time. But
yeah, and they killed him off immediately. And I
yeah.
almost think that maybe was more impactful because it just shows like nobody here is safe. There's no hope. Like there's just like this situation, and either you can
Yeah,
get
yeah.
through it or you can't. And it was really sad seeing them a few times throughout the movie run back for their friends, knowing that they're getting these warnings and still being willing, knowing that we're probably both going to die anyways.
Yeah.
And if not, one of us has to. And I'm still willing to basically put myself in a position for an hour, because you have to walk on pace for an hour to get that warning removed. Setting yourself up for that, even to the point of maybe taking 2 or 3 warnings, because you mess up
Hmm.
again, you're dead. So it's just like, wow, even in those situations, like humanity, some of us still have a heart. But what was there a moment that you were watching? I don't know if you're like sensitive to gore or not, but was there a moment that you were watching where you're like, whoa, like I have to cover my eyes right now?
Let me think. There are a couple moments where I'm like, that because there's gore and then there's like hyper realistic gore. A lot of those kills were almost as if like, okay, we're gonna kill off this actor in real life. Thanks for playing the part. You know what I'm saying? Like it was kind of
Yeah,
like I think because I went one day, I think walking in, she was thinking it was gonna be kind of like Hunger Games level violence. You know what I'm saying? If you go back to Hunger Games, yeah, they
this
had the
is way
violence.
worse.
Yeah, yeah, but this was like worse than that. And think I think it was mainly the kill because some of the kills were just like up close, like gun to the head, you know,
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So it was kills like that where I'm like, dang, like, but I think there was one kill and it was graphic, kind of like humiliating graphic and gory. It was the guy, he couldn't stop like crapping.
yeah,
He couldn't, yeah, it was that one.
yeah.
And I'm like,
That actually, yeah,
yeah, I'm like going out like that. And then the fact that, they show it and he can't stop doing it. And then he gets killed while he's doing it. I'm like, okay, they kind of like, they didn't care for that one. They didn't care about, showing that. So I was like, yeah. Now, some of them, they just kind
that
of like
was
shot them off.
bad.
Yeah, it was crazy. Some of them, they just kind of like shot them off in the background. Like they just stopped walking and you see them die in the background. I think probably the most tragic death to me was probably the little Asian guy and him screaming like I did it all wrong. I did it all wrong. And I'm like, dang, that's like tough. Like that was a tough one. Because I did like his character. But it was the fact that, for one, they didn't kill him off, they let him bleed out. And he's like yelling, I did it all wrong. Because I think
Yeah,
starting the movie out, he was talking about how he had a strategy for the walk and everything. So that one was tough. I think when it comes to the violence in the movie, I think a lot of that violence was so realistic in a way because I read something where they say that the long walk, like the book, is a metaphor for conscripting into the military. And like even if you survive fighting in the war, you never truly win because, people who come back from the military never really have their minds together, or they never really come back the same person. Even at the
Sure.
end of the movie, he kept walking, even though he could have stopped. He kept walking. And I feel like those kills were so graphic, or they really didn't care about them being so graphic, was because, I mean, like, that's exactly how, some guys go in the military. And that's kind of like the reality of war, or,
Yeah.
especially having brethren and you're watching your friends and brothers die in ways similar to
Yeah.
what went on in the long walk. Yeah.
It's
But
really hard, and it's funny because literally when I was first watching it, and this was during the trailers. When the trailers were playing, I sat down and I leaned over to my mom. I said, "I wonder why this is rated R." And she was like, "I don't know." Boy, oh boy. Like, and I actually can't recall ever seeing anyone getting shot in the head like that on screen. Like
yeah, like
that
that. Yeah.
first curly, I didn't know going into it that they were actually going to be that graphic or that they were going to show it. So I didn't know to look away because I didn't know. And I was just like, oh my, the whole theater was shook because it was just like, wow. And even when the guy who was I would say this was one of the ones that hurt me. The guy who was the writer and he was going to write the book and
Yeah,
his
yeah, yeah,
ankle
yeah.
and he's like walking on his ankle like
On
that,
his
and
ankle.
it's like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do. That's one of the ones, it was the slower ones that really got to me. It's like, there's nothing you can do. Or even Art at the end, him having to tell them like, hey, take this, give it to my grandma, like, don't look at me. Like, it just took so long and it's so painful. But what I liked is, and someone had tweeted about this, basically it's a high pressure situation, and so as an audience member, yes, your heart rate is up, but they did such a good job of knowing when to push and when to pull back. Not every
Hmm.
death needed to be as graphic as that first
Yeah.
one. There were a few more down the line, like when the thing ran over that guy, like who ran up to
Yeah.
the truck and the truck ran over him, and then they shoot him afterwards. Like that was a lot going on, but we don't need to see that every time. Or even when Barkovich was stabbing himself in the neck, like, you give me that,
Yeah.
that means the next two you got to pull back. And I think it was a good way to even keep the tension high because you never know which ones are going to be too much, which ones are not. And I feel like they did a really good job of like balancing it, but never really
Hmm.
taking their foot off the gas to where I felt relaxed. I never felt comfortable. My
Yeah.
hands kept covering my eyes the whole time because
Yeah.
it was just so much going on. And even in terms of like emotional like pull, you can't have me sitting there like gut wrench like the whole time. So to use a character like Peter to kind of like bring that hope in and give us that light, because me as an audience member, I had already gave up after mile like 100. I was like, oh, they're cooked. But to have a character that has that hope, and this wasn't a kill, but I would say one of the hardest scenes for me to watch was when the mom was
Yeah. When the
waiting
mom
and she
came up.
sees
Yeah.
that Ray doesn't have his shoes and she sees his feet and she's like, your feet, your feet. That literally, I was like, I didn't cry, but I almost cried then, because can you imagine as a mother seeing your son, he's walked over 200 miles already, you see his feet bleeding,
Yeah.
like, it was just like, I can't imagine. And when he run, because Ray had been pretty locked in the whole time, so for him to
Yeah.
walk past his mother, and then I thought he was good, him stop and run and almost get on the sidewalk, and you could tell she wants her son, but the fact that she has to step back,
Yeah.
I'm like, that is insane. I think that was maybe the best scene for me, but it was like the hardest to watch because that was just crazy. And imagine like your son looking at you saying, I'm sorry, like I shouldn't have done this, I messed up, like I want to come home,
Yeah.
and there's nothing you could do. Like, that's crazy. It was so heavy. I wasn't
That was
expecting a
seven.
heavy movie like that, for real.
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
heavy, and like you could even feel the heaviness like shared with the other guys that were walking, because I think the expressions on their faces, they're kind of like, dang, like that's
Yeah.
his mom, and I'm pretty sure they felt the same way,
Yeah.
thinking about their moms. I'd say, not the best time for his mom to show up, because he almost lost
Yeah,
his life,
I thought it would have been absolutely,
like
but
yeah,
that's what that's what Peter's character was saying that too, because at first somebody was like, well, you're lucky, like shut up, because at least you get to see your family. I'm not going to get to see my family probably ever again. And Peter was like, I think it might be harder to see his family. And I was thinking, I don't know, but absolutely, like you really can't get out the zone once you're in the zone. That was
Yeah,
crazy.
facts. It was moments like that because I mean, of course, the majority of the movie is them walking, but it was moments like that and moments like the uphill scene where all of a sudden they have to stop walking uphill and there was no type of warning, no nothing. It's kind of like, oh, we're on go now and everybody's rushing uphill and then you're like boom boom, people are just dropping and even the guy, like, that one part where the guard is just following him like gun to his head, like okay, if you slow down even like a bit, like I'm going to kill you. That part was super intense, and there's moments like that, and then there are moments where the guys are like, I guess, talking, having fun with each other, but there's still a tension as to where, like, okay, which one of you are about to die? Because there was a part of the movie where they were like,
Yeah.
okay, you can't talk about the long walk bad, you can't say, F the major or something like that, and then they all start saying it because
Mhm.
they're like saying you can get killed for that, and they all start
Yeah.
saying F the major, and you're thinking in that moment, you're like, okay, one of these guys are about to be popped, for
Yeah.
saying F the major.
Yeah.
It never happens, but the movie makes you feel that tension even without anything happening
Absolutely.
in that moment. And I was like, oh, they're just playing without
Yeah.
emotions.
The whole
Yeah.
time, it was brilliant, and even the fact that with Peter and Ray, the
Hmm.
fact that Peter starts off as like this person full of hope and seeing the light, and Ray's kind of still not doing bad, but he's definitely on his like mission for vengeance, right? And in the end, Ray is the one who stops, and he's like, well, Peter, you're right, like I can't see the light, I can't see the good in this, like, but you can, so I'm gonna lay down my life. And then Peter actually in the end is the one who can only see vengeance, so they kind of switch like
Yeah, that,
mindsets, and that
yeah.
was really interesting as well. So there was just a lot to unpack, but ultimately it's time to make a decision. So what would you say, what would you rate it?
I'd give it an infraction. I'm gonna give it an infraction only because of the ending. I feel like that ending could have been better, but the movie had me locked in for the majority of it, and I liked Peter's character. I like, the Musketeers. I like that little group they had. And like you said, I like that, okay, yeah, it's rated R, it's gonna be gory, but they knew how to pull back and make some kills a whole lot more meaningful, or I guess just a whole
Digestible.
lot more digestible. And then other times where it was, okay, we're in a scary situation, so things are gonna look scary, like the uphill one. Not everybody can die beautifully, you know what I'm saying? But they didn't make it a gore fest, they didn't make it, okay, we're going to kill all of these guys in the most crazy fashions, and like you're going to have to watch because, they didn't make it like that. It was very grounded, It knew how to turn
Yeah.
those violent, gory moments. They use that as fuel for, the tension, because you're like, in a way, you're starting to connect with some of the characters, some of the faces. So you have that
Yes.
tension.
Deeply.
Yeah, you have that tension where you're like, okay, it's this one face that I like. Are they going to die like this kid did? You know what I'm saying? And I think when you have an emotional tie to the movie like that, then it's always going to be good. Yeah. What do you think?
I agree. So I'm also going to have to give it an infraction, but for slightly different reasons. I actually, while I thought the ending fell flat in comparison to the rest of the movie, I would not take away its innocence because of that. But my issue actually really rests with the sound production. I thought the cinematography was great. I thought that Francis Lawrence did a great job directing. Obviously, the
Yeah.
screenplay was great, but I could not understand a lot of it until you and I had this conversation. I could not understand what Hank Olsen was saying when he was dying. I guess you said he was saying, I did it all wrong. I did it all wrong. I knew he was saying
Yeah.
something, and I could feel the emotion. And so I felt moved, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. And then
Yeah.
I honestly, a lot of what Peter was saying, I could not
Yeah.
understand. And I thought,
Yeah,
I can understand with maybe, I don't know if it's because of the time period or they're trying to say this is like a more southern, like,
yeah.
character, like he came from somewhere in the south. I don't know what it was, but I could not understand a lot. Now, because they're acting so well, I can still take away what I needed to, but I could not, and I don't know that it's them to blame. I don't know if there was like a dialect coach or like if it's the sound engineering in post. I don't know what it was, but
Hmm.
a lot of the dialogue got lost for
Yeah.
me. If it were
I
not
thought it
for
was just
that,
me.
I would have given it
Yeah,
an innocent.
yeah.
I thought it was me too, but when I was online, a lot of people were like, now what did Hank say? Like, we want to know. And
Y-
nobody knew. And I just think that that is something that I can't ignore if I'm reviewing like the film in its entirety. But that aside, I thought it was great. But that's just like such a big thing. And I hate that because it was almost perfect. But that's such a huge thing. Like when I watch a movie, I need to see it and I need to hear it. And you took that away. The score was great, but man, I couldn't understand what these people were saying.
Yeah,
That's really
I
it.
was thinking the
That's my
same
only complaint,
thing.
actually.
It was like some type of like Southern twang, especially with Peter. He would say a lot, and I'd have to
Yeah.
kind of like dissect it and be like, okay, what did he say? But
Yeah.
maybe it was a production thing, maybe something with the audio or sound. That yeah, I could have another complaint about that. But I think the main characters we got that from was Peter. Got a little bit of it from Hank. Yeah, and also the Arthur. Arthur as well.
Yes, Art lost
Yeah,
me a few times too. And I'm like, that's way
yeah,
too many people that I can't understand. Like
yeah.
main characters. Like I can't let that
Yeah,
go.
and thankfully it wasn't all the time. It was just certain scenes for me.
Yeah.
But I think starting out, that's when I was like, okay, what did he say? It wasn't going through my mind as smoothly as it could have been. Yeah, but
I agree.
that's a fair infraction.
Yeah, I was like outside of that, it's fine. And I again, like like you said, it's fair. I don't even think we
Yeah,
went hard on this movie, and it was a great movie. I would definitely say it's one of the best films I've seen this year. Season 5 is like off to a great start for the box
good
officers.
start.
We
Yeah.
had our first documentary. We had an amazing movie to review this week. And next week, we are taking it back. Now, there's a re release of Apollo 13 in IMAX. And so, in honor of that, we will be reviewing Apollo 13 next week. So, we're excited. But yeah, The Long Walk was great. I don't know if I'll go see it again. I'd like to think that I would. It would be worth it. I just need to. I don't know. That was a lot. So I don't know. But it definitely has my respect. High rating on my letterboxd for sure. But yeah, this was great. And I think we did a fair assessment. We
Hmm.
laid down the law, but it was fair and it was just. And that's all we can do as the box officers. I really want to hear y'all's thoughts on this movie. Like, I feel like we could have some good conversations about it. What you guys were expecting, how you felt impacted by it, and what you think the real ending was. Like, did we see the real ending or was that a hallucination? Let us know in the comments for sure. But otherwise, we will see you guys next Wednesday right here on the Box Officers podcast.
Yeah. Peace.